TV when you need me.
Hi, I'm Christine from Tebbitt Textiles. Today I'm going to show you a variation of fabric paper. This variation is very solid. It's very hard, not as soft as the one that I've shown you before. The soft one you can wrap round, you can make nice pages that will, as you can see, bend backwards and forwards, and you can do all sorts of things with it. This one has its own particular use. I usually use it for hard book covers that I want to make. As you can hear here, it's quite solid, and I use it back and front on a little concertina book that I've made, because I'm not going to be bending the cover like that. It won't crack and it'll stay really lovely and solid. I've also used it in a bigger version of bookbinding with this method, something that you use that you're going to have sticking on the top and the back, and it's absolutely ideal. It's also ideal for making slips. I've used it in this one. This was a sketchbook that I'd made for my work on the Bear Tapestry, and so I created an elaborate bee, cut it out of the fabric paper, decorated it and sewed it onto the book cover front, which was a nice addition. I've also used it in a lot of little books that I've made, little concertina books that you're not actually going to bend backwards and forwards. You're just going to pull them out, and there's something really firm to hang on to, hold on to see the work that you've done. I've got lots of little variations here. I've sewn the edges on a heart-shaped one. This particular one, I've glued the edges like I showed you in the card making video. You put the tacky glue on, let it harden, and then paint it with a bit of gold paint, and you get a gorgeous effect, and it's ideal for this hard cover. I've used it on many of the books. As you can see, different shapes. They're quite fun to make, and you can also add other decorations on top. It will take sewing, no problem. You've got to be careful though that you don't over sew, because you can puncture too many holes in it. Now I'd like to show you how I do it, how I create it. Right, the method for making this fabric paper is that you start with a piece of acrylic felt. Just start small to begin with, so that you get the hang of it and don't have it too cumbersome. Lay it down on a bit of plastic. I use bin liners, opened up to protect everything, and you start with wallpaper lining paper. Sounds a bit odd, but it's quite thick. That's what makes this a solid paper to use. You tear it up into strips, but first, like the other method, you've got your diluted glue, PVA glue here, but you make it thicker than you would making normal fabric paper, so it's quite gloopy. And so here we go, lay it down. It's a bit gungy. So lay your first strip down, and then cover it with the glue again to keep it firm. Then moving along, don't try and cover the whole piece of acrylic felt in one go with the glue. It's not really worth it. And then butt up the next strip that you've torn off. Again, cover that with the glue, and then do the next one. You can get wallpaper lining paper from any DIY store. It's quite inexpensive, which is handy, so you'll get a nice big roll. It dyes really lovely if you want to make sketchbooks out of it. It takes brush-o dye very well. Right, keep going along, butting up. As you can see, I'm leaving gaps. It leaves, because you're a bit wibbly wobbly, it leaves gaps, but that's okay, because that stops it from cracking when you are handling it later on, because it is quite a brittle end result, which I'll show you shortly. But keep going along. Until you've got the whole piece covered. There we go, there's the last piece down. Now what I do, I get strips of tissue paper, all different colours. Get a multi-pack of different coloured tissue paper, cut it into strips, put some more glue over the top and lay that down. And lay that down. Put a couple down at a time before you give it a wash of glue. Just gently cover it. What also makes it a bit stiffer in this technique is the amount of glue that you're using. It's more concentrated than the other type. And keep going with the colours until you get a lovely multi-coloured strip. Match up your colours nicely. I'm going to put just one more bit of tissue paper at the end there, bit of pink. And that's it. That's your piece ready to be put aside to dry. Takes a while to dry these because, as you can see, they're quite thick. So, but that is the end result. I can lift it up and show you there. So I'm going to let that dry. Put it down out the way. And I've got some to show you here that I've done and how they look afterwards. Here's one similar, and it's, can you see, it's really, it's still flexible, but I wouldn't like to bend it over completely. And what I normally like to do with these is that this one, I've covered it in a script stamp that I've got, a rubber stamp, put black ink, permanent black ink on it, stamp it all over, and it gives a really, you know, beautiful kind of I don't know, oldie look. And then after that I emboss it with some gold emboss. I don't know whether you can see that on the camera. It's got, and what happens is, because you've used quite a thick glue getting it down, it will leave obviously a residue of glue. And if you get your gold embossing foils and iron them on, bits of them will stick to the glue that is still there once the iron warms it all up. And it doesn't blank it out completely, but it leaves, you know, a very nice, that picks it up like that. And it's quite splattered and quite nice, and that's, to me, that's finished. And I will then use this in a piece of work, either make book cover out of it, or I'll cut words or shapes out of it and use them in parts of my work. I hope you've enjoyed this video. There's lots of different ones that I've got here that I've done. Another one that's got the gold on, and I've used the script, but you don't have to use the script. I do it because that's the look that I'm after. You could just use lovely flower prints, but make sure you use a permanent ink on the top, and as I say, have a go at foiling them with all sorts of different colours. I think this one I used a bit of a limey green one. Not quite sure I'm totally happy with it. I did a mistake here. I used a bit of strip of double-sided tape, and because it made it a solid line of gold, which is not what you want, because you're hiding all the decoration that you've already put on it. So give it some thought with how you're going to decorate them once they're dry, and what you're going to use them for. Like I said earlier, book covers are ideal, slips for other pieces of work, and even on top of book covers, and you can sew them quite nicely as well. But remember, don't over sew them, because that really can be a bit too much for it. So I hope you've enjoyed the video. See you next time. Bye.